dear to my heart because basically this was the sutta that brought me on the path of the Noble Eightfold Path. Almost 10 years ago, when I discovered Buddhism, I read about the Noble Eightfold Path and decided to read the sutta, and it was this one, and I thought, yes, this is it. So I hope you will like it. It's from the Samyutta Nikaya, and it's called The Dart. Bhikkhus, the uninstructed worldling feels a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. The instructed noble disciple too feels a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Therein, bhikkhus, what is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling? Venerable Sir, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One, take recourse in the Blessed One. It would be good if the Blessed One would clear up the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from him, the bhikkhus will remember it. Then listen and attend closely, bhikkhus. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, the bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this. Bhikkhus, when the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and laments. He weeps, beating his breast, and becomes distraught. He feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, and then they would strike him immediately afterwards with the second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by two darts. So too, when the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Being contacted by that same painful feeling, he harbors aversion towards it. When he harbors aversion towards painful feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feeling lies behind this. Being contacted by painful feeling, he seeks delight in sensual pleasure. For what reason? Because the uninstructed worldling does not know of any escape from painful feeling other than sensual pleasure. When he seeks delight in sensual pleasure, the underlying tendency to lust for pleasant feeling lies behind this. He does not understand as it really is the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these feelings. When he does not understand these things, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling lies behind this. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it attached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it attached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it attached. This bhikkhus is called an uninstructed worldling who is attached to birth, aging, and death, who is attached to sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair, who is attached to suffering, I say. Bhikkhus, when the instructed noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament. He does not weep, beating his breast and become distraught. He feels one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, but they would not strike him immediately afterwards with the second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by one dart only, So too, when the instructed noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, he feels one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. Being contacted by that same painful feeling, he harbors no aversion towards it. Since he harbors no aversion towards painful feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feeling does not lie behind this. Being contacted by painful feeling, he does not seek delight in sensual pleasure. For what reason? Because the instructed noble disciple knows of an escape from painful feeling other than sensual pleasure. Since he does not seek delight in sensual pleasure, the underlying tendency to lust for pleasant feeling does not lie behind this. He understands as it really is the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these feelings. Since he understands these things, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling does not lie behind this. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. This bhikkhu is called a noble disciple who is detached from birth, aging, and death, who is detached from sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair, who is detached from suffering, I say. This bhikkhu is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. The wise one, learned, does not feel the pleasant and painful mental feeling. This is the great difference between the wise one and the worldling. For the learned one who has comprehended Dhamma, who clearly sees this world and the next, desirable things do not provoke his mind. Towards the undesired, he has no aversion. For him, attraction and repulsion no more exist. Both have been extinguished, brought to an end. Having known the dust-free, sorrowless state, the transcender of existence rightly understands. So I wanted to explain a couple of things from this sutta. But this being the first time I do this, I take the liberty to check my notes while I'm doing this. So the Buddha explained that the human existence is a mixture of pleasure and pain. And generally, we can't avoid all bodily pain. Giving birth, breaking a bone, getting sick and old, and dying, these things happen whether we want to or not. But in this sutta, the Buddha explains beautifully that we have a choice in how we perceive it. If we hurt ourselves, do we just check if action is necessary? Do we need a band-aid? Do we need to go to the hospital? Or do we start to think about it, worry about it, plan towards what we should do if it gets worse, and discuss it with others? So whatever the type of feeling, basically there is the bare sensation, and then the perception of pleasantness or unpleasantness gets added to that. When we experience pain, there often arises aversion. We want to get away from that pain. And as the Buddha explained, what people usually do is trying to distract themselves from pain by seeking pleasure. After a painful experience, we deserve something nice. For example, when a child needs a vaccination, we might promise them some candy afterwards, or going to the zoo or playing a game. So now there will arise lust, desire. And these pleasurable things are not bad in and of themselves. It's the desire, the lust that we experience toward these things that is the unwholesome part of that. Because we tend to overlook how they are all impermanent, impersonal, and leading to suffering. Whether something is painful, pleasant, or neutral, the Buddha explains we feel it attached. Now that sounds a bit weird. Attached to suffering. Why? Because we personalize. We identify with everything. My house, my child, I have an illness, my country, and so on. Identifying with something, personalizing it, often called selfing, so this will be used interchangeably, means we expect something from it in relation to a sense of self, and it creates distress. It is painful. This selfing can happen in many, many ways. Is the projecting onto our experience, and we tend to make a big deal out of them. And it often will bring up more memories or projections onto the future that relate to this experience. And it can give rise to a whole host of other feelings. I will give some examples of this. When something pleasant belongs to you, there might also be fear along with it, because it can get taken away or disappear. Your pet, whom you love dearly, may die. Your car may get stolen. Someone else might take that last piece of that tasty dessert. Or you feel very happy and you fear that it will not last. And if we personalize unpleasant things, there may arise a sense of it being unfair. For instance, you hear many people say, why did I get cancer? Why did it happen to me? And this identifying with something makes it stronger in a sense, because you feed it your attention, you focus on it, try to get away from it, you talk about it, you think about it. And basically you feed ill will and give rise to new ill will, as the Buddha explains in other suttas. Identifying with something can also give rise to a sense of comparison, and thus it creates the idea of inequality, whether it is comparing material things, like comparing your car with that of someone else, or situations. My situation is a lot different than yours, or comparing mental states even. I experienced traumatic events and had a difficult life, while that person has it easy. So whatever the type of feeling there is, we tend to proliferate about it. We take hold of it, we try to prolong it or try to push it away. But all that attention and identifying with it does the opposite of what we want. We want relief from distress, relief from discomfort, and instead it creates more unpleasantness, and it reinforces habitual tendencies. For example, if you tend to focus on what makes you anxious, you create a personality that often attends to being afraid, remembering occasions where you were anxious, comparing this anxiety that you feel now with earlier experiences, and you will be apprehensive that you might become anxious again in certain situations, etc. So you are creating a feedback loop where your life starts to revolve around that anxiety. And what once started as just an unpleasant feeling has now become a pattern, an integral part of your life. So what did the Buddha mean when he talked about the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of pleasant feelings? The origin means that they don't arise at random out of nowhere. They always arise from a sense contact, be it the mind or a smell, a sound, whatever the case may be. And before that, there are even other things that arise and pass away that gave cause to this feeling. Passing away means that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent and subject to change. Nothing lasts forever. Gratification means the pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on sense objects, for instance, dependent on a sound or a smell. So the gratification is not the sense objects themselves. It's the way we view them, because whatever comes to us as a sense contact, we immediately start relating to it through our sense of self. The danger means that all conditioned phenomena, no exceptions, are impermanent, impersonal, and lead to suffering. These are also called the three characteristics of existence. For instance, when you are rich, you may become poor, or when you have a nice sweater, it will not stay this new and beautiful, it will end up a rag. Or something completely different, your best friend may change and even disappear from your life. The escape is the removal and abandonment of lust, aversion, and ignorance that arose from this feeling by letting go of the attachment. And you do that with the help of the Four Noble Truths. And I will get to that in a moment. The Buddha also states in this sutta, when one does not understand these things, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling lies behind this. First, what exactly is a neutral feeling, and how is one attached to a neutral feeling? And what is the link with the underlying tendency to ignorance? So, for instance, when we are seeing the sky, this can be a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. It's just the pure seeing of the visual field of the sky. And in that case, it's the bare sensation of an object without adding onto it any idea of pleasantness or unpleasantness. This feeling is usually one of two things. Either we experience it as peaceful, or what often happens is that we don't even notice it because we are so focused on looking for things to enjoy. So we can't be attached to a neutral feeling by liking it as in pleasant feeling or disliking it as in painful feeling. However, we still identify with neutral feeling. We take it personal. I am looking at the sky. We strongly feel that sense of a person looking at the sky. In other words, we don't experience these neutral things as they actually are because we continue to view them through a lens of self. There is still conceit present, attaching some sense of self to it, and ignorance. And also, when we experience the peacefulness of that feeling, we don't see how neutral feelings are impermanent. The link with ignorance is that we do not understand the Four Noble Truths. We still have to learn more about them. It's easier to see the craving in pleasure or pain than to see the conceit and the impermanence of neutral feeling. So what is ignorance exactly? Usually it's formulated as not knowing about or ignoring the Four Noble Truths. It is the opposite of wisdom. It's having the perspective of a self through which you relate to the world and the mental contents of the mind. And because of this, and this is basically all that is to it, we always want to change reality. We always feel things could be just a little bit better. We only want the enjoyment. We don't want any of the unpleasant stuff. And on top of that, we tend to ignore that nothing is permanent. And without abandoning ignorance, the Buddha said, wisdom will not develop. So the Buddha explained that we need to do this. The first noble truth, fully understand what is suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness and death are suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair are suffering. Being with what is displeasing is suffering. Separation from what is pleasing is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates subject to craving and clinging are suffering. Then the Buddha said, the second noble truth, we need to abandon craving, which is the cause of suffering, which is taking things personal, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. The third noble truth is to realize for yourself the cessation of suffering. The Buddha formulated it like this: the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving, the giving up and relinquishing, letting go of it, freedom from it. In other words, Nibbana. And the fourth noble truth is that we need to develop the way leading to the cessation of suffering. And that way is the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path starts with right view. And actually there are 2 types of right view, but I will focus only on one particularly this time. And it is understanding the 4 noble truths. Why? Because if you don't understand or know about the 4 noble truths, you don't know what suffering actually is. You have no idea what causes it, and then you will not be able to know how to let go of it. So this is one of the reasons that the Noble Eightfold Path starts with right view. The second path factor is right intention, which means the intention of renunciation, letting go, the intention of non-ill will, and the opposite of that is loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness, and the opposite of that is compassion. Then the path factor of right speech should be present, and that means not using false, divisive or harsh speech or idle chatter. Next is right action, which means abstinence from destruction of life, abstinence from taking what is not given, and abstinence from sexual misconduct. Next follows right livelihood, and the Buddha gave a whole long list about what it actually means, but for us lay followers, there are 5 things that are very important. That is, not to do business in weapons, not to do business in human beings, not business in meat, in intoxicants, and business in poison. The last 3 path factors are all about our meditation practice. First, you have right effort, and right effort is to prevent and let go of unwholesome mind states, and then to let arise and maintain wholesome mind states. Then follows right mindfulness, which the Buddha always explained in terms of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And finally, right collectedness, which means the first 4 jhanas, or what is called the first 4 levels of understanding the meditation experience. So, following this Noble Eightfold Path, you start to feed what is good, what is skillful, and you let go of habit patterns, the wanting, the pushing away, the making a big deal out of situations. It's learning to take a step back from things and observe more mindfully before responding, instead of immediately identifying with what happens. And the meditation part, so right effort, right mindfulness, and right collectedness, creates wisdom in how this all works, because you will see in the meditation how you are creating a me, a mine, a myself that is not actually there. You start to see also that you can enjoy things without adding a sense of self to it, or that there can be pain, but it's just painful and it will pass. It just arose because there were causes and conditions for it to arise. And when you follow the path and the conditions are right, it will definitely lead you to experience the 4 stages of Nibbana, the ending of craving. And with full awakening, you will see reality as it actually is and have no more wishes for it to change. There is full acceptance of life, and there will be more room in your heart to care for other beings. So,
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful.
thank you. I will not claim I will be able to.
Explanation.
I'm sorry? I
It's
did not.
really nice explanation. It's really detailed and very nice explanation. And what was this the Majjhima Nikaya, which sutra number said?
This was from the Samyutta
Sutra number?
Nikaya, and it is, let me check. I think it's Samyutta Nikaya 36.6.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
I will
so
not
much.
claim I will be able to answer all your questions, but I will do my best.
All right. Any question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Definitely.
Thank you, Sil. That was a wonderful discussion. That's actually one of my favorite suttas as well. I like always go back to it.
Yes, it's very deep.
My question is, you said towards the end something about we need to enjoy things without a sense of self.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit. I think yes, I think that's a challenging part when it's hard not to enjoy things without having a whole sense of self built around whatever that is. And so, you know, trying to peel away from that. Just if you could say more about that, I would really appreciate it.
Yes, and that's why this practice is not easy. It's something we have to learn. But you might notice that when you are really mindful, that sense of self drops away. You might know, for instance, the Bahia Sutta, where the Buddha says, in the seeing, there is just the seeing. And that is what he means. When you are truly mindful, then you are just observing whatever sense experience there is. You don't have a sense of self built around it, or at the very least, much less. So I think, yes, when you practice mindfulness, try to see that, how that sense of self very much drops away or even completely disappears.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone?
Yes, I have a question, Sil. Thank you for your detailed elaboration on the Sutta, which is, yeah, as you said, is much deeper than I have been taught that, and I've been reading that too, but it wasn't into that depth of where right now I wasn't able to really grasp the neutral feeling, the attachment or the unattachment to the neutral feeling part. How would we be able to more observant onto that particular area of like we are without a self, like even though if it's a neutral that we thought that it is like we are not seeing it, or we're ignorant of like it happened, or we are seeing it but it is not me seeing it. That part is, can you help us on your sky illustration was a good one, but I wasn't really grasping on the non-self there. Can you elaborate a bit, please?
Yeah, basically, usually whatever our experience is, we are really, even in the background, very aware of, I am experiencing this. It's always a layer of personality added to whatever we experience. And when you start to meditate and when you start to incorporate the 6 R's, for example, in daily life, you start to take a step back from whatever the situation is, instead of immediately grasping onto it with, I want it to change in some way. You take a step back and you just see, this is what is happening. And then the sense of self becomes weaker, particularly, as I said to Homero, when you become more mindful, the sense of self starts to drop away. Because, for example, if you look at a tree, usually what will happen, for instance, let's say you have a tree in the garden and you really experience it as, it's my tree, I know this tree, I have planted it there because my daughter was born and it's a very special tree, I love that tree. However, when you are very mindful and you look at that same tree, you might experience that you are just looking at color and form, basically. It's just a thing. The idea of all the memories that are attached to that particular tree drop away. So it's a process. It's something that you can't expect to suddenly wake up one day and that sense of self is gone. It's more like you keep practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, and very, very gradual, you are automatically starting to step back from life a little bit. You start to, instead of immediately react, to respond, to first think what is the best response here, or just see, oh, this is happening, and not immediately thinking about how do I need to handle this. I want it to be like this, or I want it to be like that. But it's a very gradual process usually.
Yes. Yes, I think I understand what you mean. Yeah. It's just that when you're talking about the peaceful feeling, I'm still identifying into that peace. If I'm seeing a like a, a, a yeah, anything that was in front that you find peace is still, I find myself in that
Yeah,
mode.
exactly. You are still, you have a very strong background feeling almost all the time that I am experiencing this or that. I am having a conversation with my child. I am looking at the sky. I am listening to someone. I am eating ice cream. It's all me, myself, and mine. And this is what is causing the suffering, because, as I said, we almost continuously want to change reality instead of just saying, oh, this happens and it's painful. And yes, these things happen. We start to worry about it. We start to proliferate about it and keep thinking about it. But that experience is already gone. We are looking back. Usually we are looking in the past or looking into the future, which may or may not happen in that way exactly. So we are very unmindful and not staying in the present and continuously looking through a lens of me experiencing something. And this is such an instinct, basically, that the Buddha really doubted if you would be able to explain it to people, that this is what causes the suffering. So, for example, I often use this. Suppose you are walking on the street and you trip and you hurt your big toe, let's say. You could say, oh, let's check if I need a band-aid, or maybe I need to go to the hospital. That's fine. But what we usually will do is, oh no, I tripped and I hope no one saw that I tripped. I feel extremely stupid and I hope it's not broken, because when it would be broken, I might not be able to do the sports the next week and I have an important match. So you keep proliferating about just one silly experience. And it's like a reflex. We keep doing that, and it doesn't even need to be something important, but we are very focused on things and judging ourselves and judging other people. So this is, as I said, as Buddha said, this is what is causing the suffering. Because you could also say, and I learned this through the sutta. For instance, when I hurt myself, I check, does it need attention? No, I move on. I'm not going to think, oh, I feel so stupid, or it hurts so bad and I hope it doesn't get infected. And look, people, I have hurt myself and things like that. It's just, no, it was a pain. I need a band-aid and that's it. So there is a that's why the Buddha said the noble instructed disciple feels one feeling, a bodily painful feeling, and not a mental one, because you can't influence things that happen. You have to give birth and you have to die and you have to age. But how the mind is about all these experiences, that you can change.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Totally. It's
But
just
it's very hard to grasp initially. But
apply.
basically, when you keep practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, wisdom will develop by itself. You only need to feed the right causes and conditions by doing the Noble Eightfold Path, by keeping the precepts, by doing the meditation, and then it will develop by itself.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, so.
Hi, Talon. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yeah, thank you for your talk. I kind of had a question about this in the group about part of this, and is really helpful. I'm curious because you mentioned the painful bodily feeling and then the painful mental feeling. Is that the mental feeling? Is that referring to the mind sense door, or like what is a mind sense door? I'm trying to understand what that is.
Yeah, well, in this sutta, the Buddha is explaining that a bodily painful feeling in an uninstructed worldling, as he says, will add to it basically a painful mental feeling. But yes, mental painful feelings can be all kinds of feelings. It can also be that it arose from mind contact, because when I talk about sense experiences, the Buddha talks about 6 senses, and the mind is also a sense experience. So when there are thoughts, there is also a sense contact, and a painful mental feeling might also be that it will develop into a depression or anxiety or things like that. It's an unpleasant mental feeling. But in this sutta, the Buddha said, you have a choice. You can't evade all bodily painful feelings, but you can make sure that you don't add on top of it a painful mental feeling and proliferation.
Okay. If not any more questions, shall we share merit? We'd like to thank so much. Thank you so much, Sal. This is really wonderful, and I hope you do this for us again.
Okay.
Thank you, Sal. It's really, really nice. Really, really nice.
Yeah, thank you very much. That really was one of the best talks I've ever
Yeah.
heard on the subject. And
Yes, that's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would
Thank you.
encourage you to do more. I'd love to hear some more.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
So let's share merit. Can you see my screens?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisitions of all kinds of happiness. May being inhabiting space and earth, Devas and Nagas of mighty power share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.